In this video, we're going to be asking the age-old question: if our crusty, rusty Milwaukee half-inch impact can do the job that this new $2,700 torque multiplier could do. Well, we're going to be finding out. We're also going to be our first time using IPD parts, get my impression of them, as well as various other engine installation and assembly things. So, hope you like the video. Hey guys, so we got the Mr. Headbolt truck behind us, and today is the third day on the job, and today is the main bearings. I think I have a secret weapon. What's that going to be? Well, I'm going to try and use my Milwaukee half-inch to take the mains off. If we get any that's stuck, won't come off, I'll show you what it is. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Torque Test Channel's actually done a video, not specifically on this one, but it's something I tried before, but let's just say it's a little bit heavier duty. Alright, so I don't think you can see all the mains, but you got one here, and then it works its way back. Now what I'm going to be trying to use, which has removed them before, is my half-inch Milwaukee, but I've got a bigger high-output 8-amp battery. It'll be kind of funny if this removes them all. That would defeat the point of this video. But anyway, let's see which ones it'll take off. These are drippy. Make sure they're in order first. Yeah, labeled 1, 2, 3. And then I'll have to move to the other side. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is break them all loose. Usually I'll do sets of, I'll do 4 of them and then 3 of them. But I'm still going to do, but I'm going to break them all loose. I've heard that helps getting the mains out a little easier. That one came off. Basically, the idea is to just get it kind of loose, but not out. That makes sense. Yeah, so they're both loose on one. Okay, that worked. Let's try 2. So the plan is I'm going to keep 1, 4, and 7 in, and I'll pull 2, 3, 5, 6 initially. Okay, that one's coming out. So these I'm going to actually pull out. And it's going to make a huge oily mess, as mains always do. I need to get my little bearing skateboard thing over here. The half-inch has always impressed me. They're 3/4 and 1-inch, not so much, but yeah. Let's go here. Hopefully this one will come out. Pretty easy. So pulling the first 2 mains here, and the Milwaukee's actually taken them out without any problems, which is good and bad. Well, let me show you the tool I bought before we start trying the others. So I got this from Dave, the Snap-on guy, and it is a Cat one, and you might say, man, it looks new. Apparently it's 20 years old, and he had found it from someone who had only used it once or twice, but looking at it, doesn't even look like that. Apparently these are about $3,000. I paid a lot less than that for it. This is it. Torque multiplier. But unlike the one I had before, which was like a 3-to-1, that was a 1/2 to 3/4, this is a 1/2 to 1-inch. And if you look at the specs on it, they're insane. So 3,200 foot-pound output with 173 input. So Yeah, 18 to 1. So basically, if you could hold this heavy sucker up there, which it's not light, it weighs 10 pounds at least without the little reaction arm there. If you can just put even a short ratchet on it, you can make a ton of torque, but it doesn't look like we needed to use it yet. So yeah, what we're really waiting for is to find a bolt or two that just won't come out with my impact here. And unfortunately, that's not really the case. Of course, customer's paying by the hour, so I'm not going to do an experiment on his time. I'm going to do it with the tools that I have. And of course, it's more convenient also if I can just use the impact. So you can see 4 here. I'm not fully removing 1, 4, and 7. I'm literally just loosening the bolts slightly. So that way the crank won't drop at all, but that way they're all not fully torqued anymore, and I can get out 2, 3, 5, and 6. Then I'll put 2, 3, 5, and 6 back in with new bearings, and then I'll put 1, 4, and 7 in. So that's what I'm doing here. You might see me putting my hand around the bolt as I'm pulling it out, because when your impact's spinning it, it'll fling that black oil everywhere. And it's not the nicest oil. And you'll see what I'm talking about right now. Well, that was anticlimactic. You know, it's like when you psych yourself up for something that you think is going to be bad or negative. Let's say you want to ask your boss for a raise, and you psych yourself up and you write all these things down saying why you want a raise, and you think you're going to get a bunch of pushback, and then they say, oh no, you're worth more money anyway, here's a raise. So it's a good outcome, but it's not what you were expecting. Yeah, I was expecting to have to use this new tool I got, but I didn't have to. Not yet. Now maybe when we go to torque turn them, it's a different story. That I don't know. Let's get number 6 here. Now the number 2 came out really easy, and someone was saying use a copper pipe. Can't scratch the crank. Not that I've ever scratched the crank with anything else, but I'm gonna see if I can just push it out. Yeah, that was really easy. Hopefully they roll in just as easy. There we go. So yeah, I don't know how well it'll come through. It's a 4 whiskey 5492. Usually it'll say S or STD or standard. It just says B, which is kind of weird. Looked on the lowers also, they say the same thing. It just says lower. I don't know, I'll have to check these. But yeah, let me get the rest of these uppers out and we'll clean them. And away we go. Okay, so we got our old mains over here. They are standard size, check part number, so that's good. Same with the rods. So they use cat part numbers. This is an updated cat part number, standard size, and these are them. They look fine. Well packaged, what I can see. Got your upper, your lower. I'd be wrong, I wish I had a little scale, but they feel heavier than the cat ones, but that could just be, I don't know. They do feel heavier. Should get a little scale and check it out, but they look fine. Don't see any problem with them. So I'm gonna roll the uppers in, and then we'll put the lowers back on. So we're getting our bearings apart here, and I was wondering what's keeping this bearing from touching that one and damaging it. They actually put a divider in here to protect it. That's good on them. That's cool. So let's get these puppies in, and we'll go from there. So I got our first main upper in. This is on number 6. It went in fine. Everything seems to match. So one thing, I don't remember if I've ever talked about this, but when you're doing mains or rods, so they're a crush fit. So the main bearing is slightly bigger than the journal it's in, the bore it's in. So this is pretty much flush. You can't feel it, but trust me. This one should extend past a little bit. So you should be able to catch your finger right there. And I can. So that means it's a good bearing. If it doesn't catch, that means it's smaller than the journal, and it's not going to get a crush, and it's likely going to spin, which is a spun bearing, so that's bad. Whenever I do bearings, I always check that you have one slight protrusion on either side. It's not very much. It's probably, I don't know, 10 thousandths maybe, not very much, but yeah, let's do the rest. Doing some time lapse here, and I've changed how I've done mains quite a bit, mostly from comments from you guys, like using the copper pipe instead of using a screwdriver, although I do use my large screwdriver a lot of times to set it. Just put it in there. I'm putting the uppers in, as you can see. What I was doing there was pushing it, was aligning it. And yeah, it's really hard to see. So what I'm doing here is trying to press it. I'm going to be using that turning tool, which is really just a flattened bolt, but you can't use it on all of them. Four, for instance, does not have a oil port hole because it doesn't feed any rod bearing. And some of the engines, like a C13, you can't actually use that either on all of them because they don't all have oil ports for the rod bearings in the crank journal itself. So yeah, I kind of use a variety of tactics when doing mains here. And mains aren't my favorite thing. I don't know anyone that likes doing them, but it is an obvious critical part of the engine, and installing them is very important. So yeah, these are all IPD bearings, and very impressed with them. They seem comparable to Cat in quality, at least by first impression. Obviously, I don't, you'd have to do a real long-term analysis to see. All right, okay. So number 2 here, it says front, number 2. I just zip these down with my little nut driver, so it's not really torqued at all. So we need to torque them to 190, torque turn, torque turn. And the torque turn's 120 degrees, which is 2 flats. We are set to 190. Okay, 190. Actually wasn't bad. I found it's all in positioning generally when you're torquing under here. You can get an extension, which does not change your torque. If you can get your body in a position where you're leveraged, I like to wedge my legs against something. If you can just pull it towards you, it's pretty good. So, double check. Okay, 190. Now you might notice the red lines on the old socket here. Those are very important. So where the camera is in relation to me, I'm over here and the camera's over there. But basically, if you look at where the red line is right now, we need to get it to the next one, because there's 3 positions. 360 degrees is a circle, 120 degrees the turn amount, so it's not some weird 175 or something, it's 120. So we're going to torque turn this one, and then torque turn this one, and hopefully the old Milwaukee will do that no problem. And we'll rotate it around a little bit just to make sure nothing's bound up. And then we can do the rest. I did just recharge the battery on this also. So let's see, here we go. Well, that turned it very easily. So the Milwaukee 1/2 inch. Ever impressive. This is even the older model, although I have considered upgrading to the newer, harder hitting one, but those went well. How about a little destruction of the week? This week's destruction of the week comes from Andreas, and it's a 7.1 liter. I don't want to call it a Cat 7.1 liter. They said it had low oil pressure. And it probably has low oil pressure because the oil feed line to the oil pump is pinched off. because the rod bearing decided to turn the rod cap into an S shape and then smash itself into the oil pickup tube there. Not my favorite engine, the 7.1, so not real sad, although it does suck for the owner of the engine. Apparently they already got it fixed. Thank you for sending the pictures. Let's back to work. Alright guys, so got my crane out, as you can see. Getting ready to set the head. Well, obviously not yet, because we gotta get liners in. These are IPD liners. Now I do like that they put the bore in there, because if you accidentally got a, let's say a C16 or a C18 liner, the bore wouldn't match. So these are them. A little bit different design from the Cats. So they have your black filler band, like a Cat, which that goes on top and gets coated with oil. Instead of 3 O-rings though, they've got 2 O-rings, which is O-ring, O-ring. And then this big band thing, which I'm not sure why they run the band. I guess more contact area? I'm not really sure why they run a band. But anywho, we are going to put these on. Well, we're going to put the liners in dry first, meaning no seals. And then we'll do our liner protrusion. If all that's good, then we'll put the liners in. Alright, so we got a spacer plate. Liners are in. They're not wet installed with the seals though. So when I was opening the box, I noticed, isn't that cool? They put your liner protrusion, although I would prefer that it went not like that, because that has you doing it from the intake side, which generally I do it from the exhaust side. But anywho, on their box, it's got your liner protrusion reading. So instead of doing it on the piece of paper, you'd actually read it here. And they're even numbered. I guess if you wanted to weigh all your stuff and record the serial numbers, I won't be doing that, but that is pretty cool. So I'll use that. And it's also on the head gasket, which I'm going to show you. Head gasket, same thing. But they also have the oil funnels, just like Cat does now. So they must have taken the Cat idea there for the oil drain back holes. It's like a decent kit. So this is our liner, obviously. It's upside down. Like I said, the Cat ones usually have different colors, and they're 3 O-rings of the same size. These are all green. They have 1 band and then 2 of these guys. I'm not really sure why they do that. They have the band. I really have no idea. The filler band here, but that goes on last. And one thing I did notice is this band tapers downward. No, the band doesn't. The liner's tapered, so that's actually edged in. Well, ready to put on there. So these bottom seals, you use tire soap basically, rubber lubricant. Now I lubricate the seal area as well as the seals themselves. You don't need to gob it on there because obviously it's just going to push off any excess. You don't want it to go on dry though, that's for sure. Okay, there we go. And I use this little tire soap jug with a big, hey, let's set her in there. Which is unusual for, they were Cat parts, so I'm assuming there's no inside outside. On Cats, I always put the part numbers facing out, but filler band goes on top like so. It's soaked in oil, so you need to get it on and installed within a couple minutes. You don't want to let it, you don't want to do that and then go to lunch, especially. So big old plates on. This is part of the install deal. Okay, get started. Stone is holding that in place. Alrighty, I put a little oil here and here. You'll actually be able to hear it go in. I'll stop talking. You'll hear each seal pop in. Oop, we're in. There you go. So that liner's finally installed. One thing I noticed was the liner, after it was ran in, kind of was popping up just a little bit. So I ran it back down and just been holding it there. I don't know if I'll do it again. Yeah. That's kind of weird. If you look, there's a little gap there. I wonder if that's because of that top. The band is tapered. It's pushing it up. That's weird. I'm gonna do number one and I'll see if it does that. Maybe that's just normal for IPD. I don't know. Not sure. All right, so we're doing liner protrusion here, and you can see we do have a new spacer plate, which the other one is kind of burned between cylinders 4 and 5 there. So smartly, we are not reusing that. I mean, it's always best if you can replace, although this spacer plate is quite expensive. You can also see I have a full set of bolts now, which I had only had a half set before, so I used to have to do half and half. Now I got the full set. So the bolts actually aren't that expensive. It's the washers that are. So how did our readings go? I used the IPD head gasket, or, well, I shouldn't say head gasket. This was a spacer plate shim one, but 4s and 5s pretty much across the board. The lowest we had was a 4. Highest we had was a 5.5 or 5.5 thousandths. But, which seems kind of, I don't want to say weird. 5s are great, but usually when you're using stock parts, like if this was all cat, generally you get 4s or 4.5. So it is interesting with IPD kits you're getting 5s, which is better in my opinion than a 4, but you definitely don't want a 6, which luckily they were all uniform there. So we've got our kit here. They label the piston rings too. 1, 2, 3, very cool. And these are 3-ring pistons. And as you can see, the skirt and the crown are separate using our load-bearing bucket there. Customer thought it was funny that I was using a bucket, but the table I use here is quite low, so it's kind of a good fit. So this is one of the more tedious things to do, is assemble everything, because on a cat rebuild kit, you get your cylinder pack fully assembled and installed in the liner already. So you could install the liners, just put the upper rod bearings on, put the liner seals in, and put it in without any assembly. However, I did see a couple months ago where about almost half of a oil control ring was literally missing out of a cat kit there. I was up there, I believe I put that as a destruction of the week. So that was on a cat kit, but yeah, it was literally missing part of the oil control ring, and that's just how it came from the factory. So kind of terrifying, because I've put lots of cylinder packs in, and I'm sure other cat mechanics have, without disassembling them and inspecting them. Which that would be on cat, but it would really suck if you go to start it up and it's got high oil consumption because something they did at the factory was wrong. So these are not pressed in wrist pins. They're full floating, luckily. And you can see the rods here. So the rods and the rod caps are the old ones. We're reusing them. And the wrist pins are just retained by these two little snap rings, which is also kind of terrifying. But yeah, really, I install the rings, then I install the skirt, which is an aluminum skirt. I believe it's a forged crown. And yeah, then you just assemble it around the connecting rod there. Like I said, using the connecting rod. Connecting rods are already numbered, so I knew which ones were going in where. And the crown and the skirt, at least from everything I could see, are not directional. Obviously, they are directional to some extent because they only go in one of two ways, but they have the relief for the oil cooling jet either side if you put the skirt on. So I also, after putting the cooling jets in, which I'll discuss later, made sure that they weren't contacting the skirts, but yeah, just gonna lube everything up with some oil here and install them, and that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.